Welcome to Our Journey to Christ podcast with your hosts, Nikki Cottom and Katie Spencer. Join them as they discuss difficult conversations, hope, joy, identity, expansion, faith, trust, belonging, and healing.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode. I am Katie Spencer, and I'm here with my friend Nikki Cottom. Nikki, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited for today's topic.
I know it's always fun when we get together, right? So Nikki and I, we discuss different topics. We talk things out a little bit and, try and get a heads up of what we're doing. And so last week we were discussing what we wanted to talk about. And we decided we want to talk about some limiting beliefs. And so, of course, this morning I wake up knowing what we're talking about. And I got to tell you guys, I just hit like a brick wall. It's amazing how when things are set in motion, how there can just be these blocks that just start popping up, right? And so I woke up today knowing I needed, we'd get to this point of sitting to record, to sit and to chat. And I just got steamrolled with so many thoughts of self-doubt. Why am I doing this? What do I have to offer that anybody wants to listen to? Is this really something I should be doing? Why am I any different than anybody else, right? And it's just been on repeat all day and kind of letting the wind out of my sail, so to speak, right? And just kind of, okay, I'm here. I've got to show up. Right? I am a person that I only am the expert of me. Right? And I like to sit and think, oh my gosh, I don't know if anyone else is like me. Right? And I know that uniquely no one is, but sometimes I think we get a little caught up in our heads. And I'll tell you guys, I've got a lot of voices in my head.
Yeah.
So many voices in my head. And they're not always positive. And it's, I'm my own worst critic, but I don't think I'm alone. Nikki, do you find that you have these stumbling blocks? Do you have these times that just, you know what you've got to do, you know what's coming, and then this wall pops up and these thoughts are in your head? Does this happen to
Absolutely.
you?
Absolutely. It happens. So there are times where I will be on a roll and then I'll wake up the next day and feel totally deflated and totally feel like, why am I even trying? I'm just going to fail, all these different things. And believe it or not, that used to be the normal in my brain. Like every day I'd wake up that way. And I don't know why I wasn't ever diagnosed with like depression or anything, but it was like it would just be so sporadic. Like I would go to bed feeling great and wake up just feeling like I had just been trampled and nothing was going to work out that day. So, yeah, absolutely. I know what you're talking about because I feel it a lot too.
Right? So I think today, guys, we'd like to talk a little bit about, some of these voices in our head, not in a crazy way, but the thoughts that we allow to be put on repeat. The thoughts that really usually are our own inner dialogue, and they are usually about ourselves. A lot of the thoughts that I know that run through my head aren't about other people, but they tend to be on a highlight of my weaknesses, my faults, my shortcomings. And I think I'm not alone. But I know that I've had my bouts of depression, and then I've had wonderful opportunities and days when there's so much more hope, right? And I think I can say that I have more hopeful days than down days. But I know that everybody has the good days and the bad days. And I think what Nikki and I would like to talk about a little bit more today is how do we give ourselves awareness and tools to help us work towards those more better days and less hard days of the voices in our head and the beliefs that we have about ourselves.
Yes. Absolutely. Let's talk about some of these things and there are a couple things right off the bat that I think will be helpful as we pick these different types of limiting belief aspects apart. And one of them is that the devil uses the same script for everybody. Like he just does. He'll pick at our self-worth, he'll pick at our talents, our weaknesses, our sins, our shortcomings. He'll just like pick us apart, right? And Katie was saying that it's usually not about other people. Sometimes it is, right? But usually it's about ourselves. Why? Because if we can get pulled off center, out of our power, then we're just kind of in the we're devil target practice, right? We just are in the zone of where we can get attacked and we're totally off our center. We're not feeling balanced, we're not feeling grounded, we're not feeling connected to God as easily. And that's the perfect time to pounce. So, one of the things is the voices in your head that are demeaning, belittling, that are sabotaging, are all from the same universal devil and his group that everybody gets. So some weaknesses might cause a person to adopt a limiting belief more easily. There is just a whole list of these are the things we're going to target God's children with because we want them to feel like they've already failed. That's one thing. Just know that you're not alone. We all get them. Like they're all being slung like mud in every direction, and some of them will stick stronger to us than others because of our connection with God or how close we feel to Him or the time of life we're in or whatever. I know it's not great to hear that everybody's getting attacked, but at least know that we're all on the same team, and because of that, we're all going to be fighting the same opposition, and so we're getting attacked by the same weapons. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is the difference between capital T truth and lowercase t truth. Capital T truth are God's words. They're what He has spoken over you, over your life, what He has spoken in Scripture, what He has spoken to His children, to those who follow Him, the universal laws that He lives by. Those are all truth with a capital T. And then there's personal truth, and that's based off of our personal experience. That's a lowercase t. That truth can change. That truth can totally evolve. So you might think, I'm such a failure. If you think that way, then it doesn't mean that's a capital T truth. That would actually be like a lowercase t truth. That would be a temporary truth, right? It's only temporary because as that comes and it sticks and you keep allowing that record to play, that broken record that just keeps repeating, then you do adopt it to have some sort of level of truth. In which case, then that is kind of like that lowercase truth, but it's not true. In fact, we may talk about some tools to flip it, but if you think about that lowercase t truth that may not be a helpful one, may not make you feel good, if you flip that to the total opposite belief, it actually is a strong truth. So take I'm such a failure. If you take that to the opposite and say, I am such a success, how much power do you feel? I'm sure there's like maybe a twinge of like, oh my gosh, can I really even say that? I'm not sure I'm there yet. But that's okay. That's okay because we're all learning line upon line. And even if you can't jump immediately to the polar opposite, which is actually the capital T truth in most cases, then just be open to the idea that someday that might be your new normal, to be able to flip it and to realize that is actually the capital T truth. It's actually a universal law that everyone living on this earth is programmed divinely and physically for success. Like we are just programmed for success. So if I say I'm such a failure, yeah, that kind of resonates with me because I can list off for you a bunch of things that I've felt like I've failed at in the last 2 days. But the real capital truth is that I am a success. And the real capital T truth is that you are a success, that you are created with all the tools for success. And the fact that you got up today and you are living and breathing and moving shows that you are a success in action.
I love that. I love that flipping the script, right? And like you said, if you're really comfortable in sitting in that failure, it can be very hard to even say the words, "I am a success," let alone believe it,
Right.
right? But the key is that we have to learn to say the words first so that we can believe it, right? The more that we say, the more it sinks into us and we start to believe it, right? And I love how you talk about the capital T truths and the lowercase t truths because you're right. Like we do fail, right? I can be cooking a dinner and it can be a total bust. All right. Trying a new recipe, like this is so minute, right, of a situation, but but it actually resonates with me. I come from family that my mother is an amazing baker. And for the life of me, I can't seem to get things to bake and come out of the oven in this beautiful space that she does, right? And so when I try to bake, I feel like a failure. And many times I can admit, like I have just kind of said, you know what, I'm gonna own that I'm a failure. Um, and I can say that because I stopped trying, right? I allowed that lowercase t to stay with me because the outcome wasn't what I wanted. Now, we could flip that in another manner and say, okay, but we failed to learn, and then I try again. There's a new aspect I needed to do, right? Elevation changes from where she lived to where I lived. Humidity changes, like all of these things, right? The more that you understand and you learn, you delve into, you adapt, and that is growth. So even in that failing, right? If you continue to get up and you keep trying and learning and progressing, it really does, in those steps, create a success. Now, for me, sadly, I've chosen I don't want to bake bread because it's not as good as my mom's, right? And it wasn't worth the energy for me. But I have to make sure that I don't sit in that ownership that I'm a failure when it comes to making bread. Instead, it's a choice that it's not a passion I want to pursue,
Yeah.
right? But it's this slippery slope here of where do we get? Because in the back of my mind, I might still have that thought because I gave it more credit. Oh, you just failed. You're
Mm,
no good at that, right?
right.
And
Yep.
I kinda closed the door, which is so wrong because any day I could just pick it up and start trying again, and I could totally succeed in it.
Yes.
So, it's crazy, we can talk about the words and the process of it, but actually applying it in life is so complicated, right?
Yep. And it's true that when we allow these limiting beliefs about baking or these other things to stop us from creating something, that is choice, right? I'm not going to judge whether that's the right choice or wrong. I have no opinion about it. But I think it does give us the option to say, hey, this is at least to admit that it is a choice, right? It is a choice that we're making to give up. And that's not a failure either. I can tell you a bunch of things that my mom did growing up that I don't do. And it's not because it was a bad thing. It's just because my joy comes from different sources in my life now. So I don't want anybody listening to think that just because they might not be good at something that they're a failure because it's absolutely not true. I think that we get our weaknesses so that God can raise us up to what is most important and to see things in a way that's most important for our success. So, and the fact that you have your mom living with you right now, I think helps because you can just say, "Hey, mom, how about some more of that bread?" Right?
It's true, it's
I love
true.
it. I love it. But also going off of that, if we think about the law of attraction, it's whatever we give attention to and intention to, we receive more of. And a lot of us, we think of that in terms of, okay, so what are my goals? What am I going to focus on? But if we really get real with ourselves and really dig deep, how much of the thoughts that we are thinking are positive? Because whatever we give attention to, including the things we resist, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, actually have more power over us than some of the positive things that we, if we had our way, would choose to think about that and only that. One thing God has told me recently is you need to stop planning with failure in mind. Yeah, that's something he told me recently. I'm like, I'm successful a lot. Like, I'm a pretty successful person. But he's like, how about this thing you planned and this thing and this and this? And you planned it with like, make an effort, hide behind a rock. How many of us are doing that where we're making plans and we're setting intentions and then we go hide because it's too scary, or we think that failure is the outcome because we've seen so much of it. And I think part of that is that our minds try to collect data, try to collect evidence of something so that we know how to navigate the future. But the problem is, a lot of that evidence we gather is failure based. So really important that we choose, and I think Katie's going to talk a little bit about this, choose to fill our minds with some of the more positive so that we have more evidence for some of that stuff.
Words have power, and they lead and they guide. How many of you guys have, I mean, it's been a thing lately where people are talking about affirmations, right? We all scroll through our phones, watch videos all the time. Some of my most favorite videos are when I'm watching little children repeating affirmations, right? When you start young and they're looking at themselves in a mirror, they're speaking out loud, I am strong. I am beautiful. I am courageous, right? And you see it with these little kids and you think, oh my gosh, this is so adorable. Yes, more power to them, right? And and they're teaching, and I've seen this in schools and preschools, right? All about on families all over. Um, but we need to remember that it's not just for children. It's beautiful to see that there's generations of kids that are coming up that believe these things, right? And I think really, honestly, we need to get down to ourselves, and do we feel that love for ourselves? Is there love? Nikki and I have this book. It is called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die by Karol Truman. And she is an amazing therapist, author, healer. And
Absolutely.
in her practice, she says, in my counseling, I have found that practically everyone on a subconscious level, at least, right? Because we're not always truthful to ourselves and everyone else at a conscious level. But on a subconscious level, almost everyone does not love themselves. They do not accept themselves nor trust themselves. Okay, this was a practicing therapist. Almost everyone that she saw does not, on the deepest level of themselves, love themselves, accept themselves, or trust themselves. It's an interesting thing, right? So as Nikki's talking and we're talking about what where we give our intention brings more of the law of attraction. The more that we put out there, the more we'll receive back of the same type of energy. If we don't love ourselves, if we don't like ourselves deep down to the core or trust ourselves, what kind of energy is that bringing? So step one right here is we're talking about limiting beliefs. We need to be aware. We need to understand the concept of it, right? But ultimately, we need to understand the core of us. Do we love ourselves? Do we like ourselves? And then can we trust? It's going to obviously build upon each other, right? Maybe we have to start with liking ourselves before we can love ourselves, right? I'm not sure which order that's going to be for each one of us. But to me, it starts with accepting ourselves of who we are.
I love that. I actually have an experience that just popped into my head about this. So, growing up, I have a bunch of gorgeous sisters. And I always thought that I kind of got the short end of the stick in terms of looks and all this stuff. I'm like, well, at least I have the red curly hair. I got that going for me. So I had a lot of limiting beliefs about myself and about myself being attractive and beautiful and things like that. And it took me a long time. There was actually one time somebody came up to me and they just said, "You look so beautiful." And I was like, "What?" That's a thing, because it was somebody who wasn't a family member, right? It's somebody who didn't have I felt like had an obligation to tell me, right? And I was like, maybe that's true. Maybe I am beautiful. And I decided it was a very big aha moment when I realized that I couldn't even stand in front of the bathroom mirror after my shower and find anything I liked about myself. And I decided that I was going to stand in front of the mirror, butt naked, and find some things I liked about myself. And also to say, I am a beautiful daughter of God. And I chose to say that to myself. And the first, I don't know, 200 times, 300 times maybe that I did it, I didn't believe it. I was like, yeah, but what about that? What about this part of my body? What about all this baby weight? What about this? And what about that? And what about my acne? And what about, and every time I would say it, then I would have like but it's not true, kind of backlash. And that was just evidence that I hadn't adopted it yet, right? But then over time, I started to find things that I did love about myself. And I started to look for evidence that it was true, that I was beautiful. And I did that for at least several years until I got to the point where I actually had a really good relationship with my physical body. Like I felt like we were a team instead of enemies. And not long after I got to that point, I was nominated for Mrs. Utah North America Universe. What changed? It was a relationship with myself that changed. I still was 30 pounds overweight. I still had all these other things that I had, all the baby weight and everything. But it started with deciding to believe that I was beautiful. And nothing else changed. I was still the same weight. I was still the same everything else. What changed was the truth that I chose to accept. I chose to accept the truth with a capital T, and that changed how I saw myself. And that also changed the opportunities that showed up for me. So, if that gives you a little motivation, not that you're going to be on a stage in a pageant or anything, maybe you will, I don't know. But that should hopefully give you an insight. I didn't know a pageant was on the horizon. I didn't have any idea what was coming up. But I'm grateful that I had that relationship, because if I was still in the belief that I was not attractive, that everyone else got the better genes than me, then that opportunity, even if it showed up, there's no way I would have taken it, because I wouldn't have believed that I was beautiful.
Thank you, Nikki. And as you're talking, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, well, how do we flip that script? Because that's what it is, right? It's speaking truth. It's speaking positive about ourselves and finding what we can see and feel is true. So here's the thought that I had. As you finished your story, you said you were speaking truth, right? Now, I've had body issues my whole life. My mom and my aunts always told me that I was so blessed when I was a teenager with birthing hips. Okay. Do you know what that means? That means I'm curvy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but growing up, I mean, I grew up in the Barbie age. I mean, Barbies were what we played with all the time. And Barbie is just straight. She doesn't have hips. Right. I grew up near Hollywood, and you get into the movie scene of things, and in the 90s and the 80s, everyone was really skinny, and that's what, and we still have that, right? And so it was the same thing for me, like as a younger teenager, as a child, throughout my whole life. I have curves. My body was made to have curves. It doesn't matter the weight I am. I have shape, but it can be hard because there are ideas out in the world that start to get imprinted, right? And again, it's that I allowed those belief systems to settle in, of this is the ideal look. This is what is considered beautiful. This is what's considered acceptable, whatever. And I love, Nikki, how, you sat there looking at your body stark naked and said, okay, what can I love? Right. And I've done the same thing. And I can promise you, I've looked at it and said, I don't know. What can I love? Right. And I think what's really important is when we're seeking truth and we're seeking love, because it's truly about loving ourselves, we need to be careful that we don't lie. Okay? Because we're seeking truth and we're trying to get rid of the limiting beliefs, the things that are basically lies, that we're not good enough, we're ugly, we're not beautiful, whatever it is. But we need to make sure that we are feeding ourselves something that is believable, that feels true to us in the moment. And so for me, stepping into something like that, when I've been in these moments that I've just struggled with loving my physical self, an approach that I've taken is I look at my body in a manner of, what is it doing for me?
Mm,
And I can love my legs because they are holding me up. They do not fail me. I can love my hips because they made my pregnancies and my carrying my babies easier. They
mhm,
made the birth of my children so much easier. My labors were not hard and intense, right? I can love my arms because they're strong and they've been able to hold my babies in all the phases of life. I can love these aspects of my body in a manner that doesn't have to be in just the physical definition of beautiful, but my body is strong. My body shows up for me every day. It's with me. It strengthens me. Even when I abuse it and I don't treat it with the best of love, it shows up for me, right? And you and I, Nikki, are taking different approaches, but the outcome is the same because at the end
right.
of the day, I have this deep love and appreciation for my body,
I
right?
love that.
And because that appreciation, I can say my body is truly beautiful and
Mhm.
maybe not in a worldly stance or by anyone else's standard, right? But to me, wow, this body is such a blessing and so beautiful. It does things I never have, like, even have to give thought to, right? My heart beats, my lungs work, like all the inside organs, they show up every day for me. So
Yeah.
I think that's just a reminder that, you can sit there and say, okay, well, I don't know that I can say that look at my mirror and say I'm beautiful, right? Because maybe that feels like a betrayal. But what is it that you can say that feels honest to you in the moment that you build upon?
Yeah, gaining that curiosity and that courage to step into what is the truth, wherever you are. It could be something that you like about yourself, who you are inside, outside, something that puts your mind at a more elevated space. And that's a really good point to look at it as, what is the next step? If I'm not quite ready to say, I am totally gorgeous naked in front of the mirror, right? Maybe if you're not ready to say that, what is it? What is it that you are willing to do? Because this body is a beautiful gift. And Katie, I would say I think you are sexy. I've always thought you're beautiful. So
Thank you.
um, I do think that it really is important, like you said, Katie, to develop this good relationship with your body and whatever that looks like. And just know that you are programmed for success. Your body is beautiful. And the difference for me was simply my mentality. Took a while. Probably within a year admitting in the mirror that I was beautiful, my acne pretty much went away. I had acne up into my 30s. I'm like, "This is not okay, guys." And it started clearing up. Like, it was not that I wasn't beautiful, it was that I had just continued to believe that I got the short end of the stick, that my body wasn't that pretty, all these other things that were lowercase t truths that actually weren't true at all. They were just what I had adopted to believe that were actually causing some of these health problems that I had to stay there. Once I decided to step into acknowledging the beauty, that's when things started correcting themselves. And I think that goes right into the law of attraction, which is whatever we give attention and intention to, we'll receive more of. So if I'm giving attention to the beautiful, if I'm giving attention to the lovely, the amazing things around me, the more I'm going to see that, the more I'm going to receive that. So Katie, she took it with the approach of showing appreciation for her body. And that's beautiful too. That's doing the same thing. It's giving conscious attention to. Proverbs 2 says, "For as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." I think it's true that when we choose to speak the words of love to ourselves, to others, love is a very high form of praise. When we choose to say words of love to ourselves and other people, we're actually choosing to have our mindset be on a totally higher level of thinking than the lower level of thinking, which is more worldly, which is more of, well, I don't look like a Barbie, so therefore I'm not good enough. I've never looked like a Barbie, but somehow I'm still beautiful. And like what Katie was saying, awareness is really healing. The awareness of what types of beliefs are coming up. I probably read about a dozen books in the last decade that focused on negative thoughts and retraining your brain, developing a whole new mental paradigm for life, and all these different things. One of the things that actually was not as helpful for me was to identify all the limiting beliefs that I thought of in a day. I think I was up to 200 by day 2, and it was not pleasant in the slightest to know that the numbers were not going down. That just by targeting them, it didn't mean the numbers were dropping. It actually caused me to feel kind of discouraged for a while that the numbers weren't seeming to go down. It was more and more every day. And even though the devil uses the same script, there's a lot of various versions of the wording and how it applies to this versus that. And one of the things that has been healing for me is to show awareness that the belief is there and then to choose how to respond to it. And at first, if all you can do is show awareness, that's a massive first step because most people don't even get to that. Is the awareness that there's a belief that's showing up that might not be a very good one. And with that, we can also apply the universal law of non-resistance to this. And everyone hates this law because it makes you feel counterproductive in every single part of your life, but it actually works with you. So if you can own this law and let it work for you, kind of like airplanes using the laws of space and how the air and altitude and the wind and all of that works, they can take flight, right? When you use this law, it's no longer pushing against you, it actually can lift you up. And so the law of non-resistance says that whatever we resist persists. Which we don't like, right? We want to resist it and it goes away, right? But does that happen? Like with our limiting beliefs, if we say, I'm not gonna believe that, how much more does it come back?
It's
All
true.
the time, right?
Well, it's that concept, like, as you say that, I'm kind of imagining, like, right, I'm a recovering control freak, trying to learn how to let go of control. But it's that idea, right? Like, I'm tugging, like, I want the control, and so I'm like, I'm almost bringing it back, like, it needs to be in my rules, right? So, yeah, that totally plays into whatever you resist is gonna persist. It's gonna keep coming back because you're kind of blocking the flow. If you would just let things flow, it'll come through and pass by. But instead, I'm like, no, to give it back, tug back. Like,
Right. We almost want to have things at arm's length, right? Because then we feel like we have control, but it just means it's like a dog just continue to bite you and you're holding them on a leash, right? It's that type of thing. And just so you know, those who are listening, this isn't a sad note we're going to leave you on. We're going to give you the tools to climb this mountain so you don't have to feel so stuck and you're like, I've been sabotaging my life this whole time and now I don't know how to get out of it. So the law of non-resistance, if you think about the visual of water, water takes the path of least resistance. Water does not resist at all. Water does not fight back. It just goes with the flow. And there is a certain element of flow that we need because that's how life works. It works in flow. And when we try to resist something, we're actually building up a dam that someday that dam is just going to knock us over, right? But if we allow things to flow, then life will be manageable. So, what that looks like is when we have the awareness, like I said, even if you just develop the awareness, you're ahead of so much of the entire global population. Just having the awareness of these thoughts and don't shame them, don't guilt trip yourself over them. If they're there, it just means, hey, you're one of God's children that the devil is using this long routine script on. It's nothing personal. When these things come up, like, "Oh, you're such a failure," then just having the awareness of saying, "Aha, I see it," and then recognizing it, that's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. Do that, do that. If you get to the point where that becomes really good and easy, then you can switch it to either flipping the script, like we talked about. Oh, I must be a success then, because the devil is telling me I'm a failure. He's the father of all lies. So, therefore, the opposite must be the truth. I am a success. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is you can go straight to God and ask Him. And what this looks like is when we are resisting something, we are trying to force an outcome. We're trying to force something. We're trying to have this false sense of control. But force is not the same as power. Power is stronger than force, but power does not force anything. Power is power in and of itself. And force is when we try to control a specific outcome. So if we let go of the resistance and we say, oh, I'm noticing it's there, there's power in that awareness. Okay, first of all, you've just exercised one beautiful principle of personal power. And then what you can do is you can decide to just step into your own power and say, God, what is the truth here? If this is the lie that's being told me, then the truth must exist somewhere else. God, where is this? And then trust in your own divine intuition, because that's how it's going to come to you. It's going to come to your heart or your mind, and God is going to speak to you the truth. And if you choose to accept that, then it's going to be so much easier for you to notice when that negative script comes around again. You're going to say, but I have heard the truth from God Himself. And so I know the truth in this situation. And then it gets easier and easier over time to identify those and to flip them or to connect with God and say, what is the truth then? And let God teach you. It's actually an opportunity to receive more guidance and intuition. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. There are plenty of times a day that I still get hit with this script, hit over the head with this script, and I fall for it. And then the next day I'm like, why did I fall for that? That was so stupid. But it was in a moment of weakness, right? And so I never want you who are listening to shame yourself or to feel bad just because this script exists. Because you literally have nothing to do with this script. You don't. It's not your fault these messages are coming across your mind. It's not your weakness that's causing these scripts to take permanent hold. It's an opportunity. I feel like sometimes God allows things to happen that are uncomfortable because He wants us to come running to Him so He can teach us. And as we come to Him, we become stronger against that force. God gives us power that, regardless of how big and scary this force of the adversary seems, it has no power. Absolutely. It's not power, but we receive power from our divine Heavenly Father and Jesus. That's where true power comes from. So just so you know, it's not your fault. It's not your fault if negative beliefs are coming. It's just a reminder that the truth somewhere does exist. And it's an invitation to seek that truth.
Love it. I love it. Nikki, we started this episode with my struggles I was having today, right? That I woke up feeling less than, that really hitting these beliefs, and I didn't like it.
Nobody does.
And so I did. I was praying and I took it to God and I just said, I don't like this. I know that this isn't the words you would choose to describe me. I actually asked him to take them. I asked him to help me to surrender because some of them maybe I've been holding on to and getting confused in my identity and maybe using them as crutches, excuses of I'm not good enough. But I also sat down and I took some time to myself and tried to flip the script.
Nice.
And I was coming through and it's like, okay, well, being vulnerable on camera and creating a podcast, I have fears because that's ultimately what is driving a lot of these limiting beliefs is my insecurities, my fears of being judged. I'm not enough. Why would people want to? Maybe they're going to find fault. But instead, I decided to tell myself that I'm choosing to be accepted as I am. Fault to know. I'm going to show up with a curious mind to see where God's going to take me on this journey. And so as I was kind of preparing for this podcast and working through these negative thoughts that were coming to my mind, back in Carol Truman's book, I love it because she spells things out and she'll take the negative emotion because sometimes it's easier to sit in the moment of like, this is what I feel. I feel frustrated or I feel judged. And then she gives you this beautiful thesaurus setup of the opposite of what do I want to fill that in? Because that law of attraction, I don't want to sit in that negative. Instead, I'm going to bring the energy of that positive. I'm going to flip that script and I'm going to sit in it. I love that she leads people in saying, identify where you're struggling. What is that negative, right? So if I'm feeling shame, that's the opposite of that is worthy. And then to use the simple script of I choose to feel worthy, right? That's a choice. That's like Nikki said, that's taking that power. And that's actually empowering me in doing that, right? I'm pulling that power. I'm no longer sitting with Satan in that negative of being forced to sit in shame. I'm choosing to step into being worthy. And then the next was, I feel worthy. So first I make the choice, I am worthy, or I will be, I'm going to be. Then I feel worthy. And then she finalizes it with, I am worthy. It's these stepping stones of choosing, feeling, and then becoming with these things. And I feel like as I was going through this exercise of practicing flipping the script, it felt like I was receiving it. It didn't feel like a lie because it started with a choice. And because I
Yeah.
chose it, then I was, okay, this is the empowerment within me. And then I was going to feel it. I was going to sit in what does it feel like to be worthy? It is very different than feeling shame.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so proud of you. I love doing this myself. It's not just Katie that's doing this. I actually have Carol Truman's book on my dresser next to my bed. So when I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking, what am I feeling? I'm feeling kind of cranky. I'm feeling irritable. I'm feeling like I don't want to be controlled, but I want to control something else. What is it? I can just look it up. I can look up whatever emotion it is that I'm feeling and choose the positive. And she has a beautiful script, like Katie said. She's got a script, she's got a whole way of reframing and taking out the old and replacing it with the new and the beautiful. I've done it dozens of times. I love her book so much. So if you want to hold it up one more time, Katie, it's called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. It's by Karol K. Truman.
There you go,
It's
baby.
got this beautiful horizon with the sun just shining through the clouds down in this beautiful purple and yellow. That's what the cover looks like. It's a beautiful book. And so if you've been inspired by some of these things, feel free to pick up that book if you haven't looked at it. It's a powerful read. And it's also a book that you can have by your bedside or wherever you are when you usually feel emotions that you don't quite know what to do with or feelings. And it can really help transform that so that you can have a much better outlook or feeling or uplift for the day, and it's powerful. It goes with you. It helps you receive power and let go of that force, let go of that resistance. So it's not just Katie using it. I use it. A lot of other amazing people I know use it. It's a great personal tool to have just at your fingertips. So thanks for sharing that, Katie, and also your experience. It's just beautiful to hear this vulnerable testament that you've shared today, that you've been able to give to us, because it's real. It's real and it's raw, and it's what we really should be doing, or at least consider as a resource for in the future and as you go throughout life, because the attacks aren't going to get any less. But if we can step into that power more and more, we're going to be made stronger against those. And that's what we need for these days, right?
It's true. And I think that the greatest gift that we have is the love we have of ourself. As we go out and we interact with our children and our families, our friends and our community and our jobs in all aspects, when there really is that deep conscious and subconscious love for ourselves, we show up different. We show up different. We can give more. And so I think it's so important that we really strive to find that deep love and, go back to that, the little affirmations every day with these kids, right? They're saying, I'm strong, I'm beautiful, I'm courageous. Have courage. We should be doing these exercises every day, looking at ourselves in the eyes, through the mirror, right? But acknowledging and saying the words and then choosing to believe it, feel it deep within our soul, and then walk out the door knowing I am this. Even
Yeah.
if we start it every day or we say it multiple times a day because Satan creeps back in. But there is so much power in the positive. We just need to harness it and then take it out to the world. And we will change the world as we do so.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing, for being vulnerable and real today. It's so fantastic having you on this podcast. Fears and all, vulnerabilities and all. I'm so glad you're here. And so is everyone else, right? Give an applause for Katie. She's doing an
Thank you.
amazing job.
No,
And
and Nikki and all that you share, thank you for always having so much of the information to clearly walk us through the steps and helping us understand, especially the different laws of attraction and how the Lord has just provided these. And as we listen and understand them, we can utilize them for our good. So thank you for always teaching. We love it.
you're welcome. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.